For essay number 2, you're going to find the material for essay 2 under material for essay number 2. There on the content page. You're going to see the essay assignment. You're going to see Brian Johnson's essay, Realism in a Dollhouse, and Scott McCloud, a TED Talk, Understanding Comics. There's also a transcript. I include that now because so students don't have to sit there and try and write down what Scott McCloud's saying as he's going through the video. Let's take a look at the essay. All right, this is essay 2, a guided research essay on the drama and graphic novel. By guided research, I mean I'm telling you where the research is going to happen. You're going to be using a dollhouse, Lulu Anew, the Brian Johnson essay, and the Scott McCloud video, and that's it. You should not be doing other research, not using BARD or ChatGPT or any other AI platforms. It should be you looking at these 4 works and developing your essay. It's going to be a 1,000-word minimum using MLA formatting. And the way it's going to work is section number 1. You're going to summarize and discuss one idea of Brian Johnston in his essay, Realism in a Dollhouse. And you're trying to find that one idea that you can relate to Lulu Anew. We're going to juxtapose the critic and the genre. So even though Brian Johnston's talking about Ibsen's plays and a dollhouse, you're going to take one idea from that essay and relate it to Lulu Anew. And then you're going to do the same thing with Scott McCloud's video. He's a graphic novelist who likes to write about how graphic novels make meaning and make meaning in a very special way. And you're going to take one of his ideas and apply it to a dollhouse. Excuse me. And once you kind of get that working, you're going to end that first section with a clear thesis saying, hey, I'm going to talk about this idea from Brian Johnston, how it relates to Lulu Anew, and I'm going to use this idea from Scott McCloud and show you how it applies to a dollhouse. So again, you're juxtaposing the critic and the genre. That's kind of the trick to this essay. So when you start reading, particularly Brian Johnston's Realism in a Dollhouse, it's going to be a little overwhelming at first. Brian Johnston was a fairly famous Ibsen critic, and he spent most of his academic life reading all of Ibsen's plays in the original Norwegian, and thinking and writing about these plays, and just, that's what he spent a lot of his adult life doing. So he's a little ahead of us, right? He might be just smarter than us in general, but he's been applying that intellect to this one thing his entire adult life. So he's way ahead of us. Don't think you're going to understand everything in this essay. Don't feel like you have to. You're looking for one idea out of this essay that you can then apply to Lulu Anew. Like I said, some of this is going to go right over your head, but try and find that one idea. Here he's starting to talk about the spiritual laws of men and women, basically how women are expected to do certain things, but they're still judged by the laws of men. It's kind of an interesting idea, maybe a little dated to our modern sensibilities, but still happens quite a bit, and that's kind of part of what's happening in Lulu Anew, maybe. If you read that and kind of go like, I don't see that happening in the graphic novel, move on, right? You're looking for that one idea that you can use and develop your essay with. Nor identifies her moral sense with a care for her family's well-being. Kind of an interesting dilemma with Lulu, right? And that, again, it kind of depends on what you're seeing happening in the graphic novel. I always get the feeling she was always going to go back home eventually, at some point. But she wants to kind of go back on her own terms, right? So that might be something you can start working into an essay of your own, and a way you can relate this Brian Johnston essay to Lulu Anew. But you're going to read through this. And again, some of this you're just going to go like, no. And you kind of see it's still in draft form. Brian Johnston's kind of shotgunning out a lot of ideas, which makes for a good opportunity for us to take one of those ideas and turning it into our own essay. Again, just trying to find that one idea. This one's kind of an interesting one. Ibsen once wrote, each person shares the guilt of the society to which he or she belongs. It's an interesting idea. Lulu's friends seem to understand why she might be having some problems and not wanting to come home, and maybe feeling a little guilty about it. So and you might take an idea like that and start thinking, I can relate that to Lulu and make a good essay out of that. And that's kind of what you're looking to do. And I'm not going to go through this whole essay. It's a lot there. Again, don't get flustered. You're trying to find that one idea you can pull from this essay and make it into your essay by comparing that idea to Lulu and New. Whoops, sorry. No, that's right. No, I went. Okay, there we go. Likewise, you're going to watch the Scott McCloud TED Talk. It's going to pull up in D2L. Make sure you hit play to play. I got the sound turned off there. And he's going to kind of do the same thing. He's going to talk a lot about graphic novels, how they make meaning, and he thinks how they make meaning in a very special way. But you're going to try and pick one of his ideas and apply it to a dollhouse. It's not necessarily going to be the same idea that Brian Johnston has, right? Don't try and do the exact same thing. You're going to try and pull it all together towards the end of your essay. But really, you're going to have like two mini essays happening within your essay. One where you're going to talk about Brian Johnston and how his idea relates to Lulu and New. Then one you're going to talk about Scott McCloud's idea and how it relates to a dollhouse. And again, it may not be just a perfect meshing there. Towards the end of the essay, that's when you're going to start saying, hey, isn't it kind of interesting that I got these two ideas working and how these genres and critics work together in a particular way. But section 1, that's where you're just going to kind of show us which idea you're going to work with. You're going to quote from Brian Johnston's essay, then tell us what you think he's saying there. Don't just quote and move on. If you give the quote, kind of say, and here's what I think Johnston's meaning by this. Then you're going to do the same thing with Scott McCloud. Make sure you quote from him, show us where your idea is coming from, tell us what you think McCloud's trying to say in that quote. And then that's where you're going to start moving towards your thesis statement, saying I'm going to talk about this idea and from McCloud and relate it to a dollhouse, and this idea from Johnston and relate it to Lulu and New. And that'll be your thesis, and that's what I'm looking for you from Thursday, so I can kind of see what ideas you've picked out. Then in section 2, that's where you're going to start developing those ideas. And again, you might feel like two mini essays within your broader essay. But make sure you're analyzing the play and the graphic novel as you go through that idea. You should not be doing any other research. Should not be just be doing plot summary, right? I've read them both. So this is kind of up to you. The number of paragraphs is up to you. And it's kind of interesting. I get essay. Not every essay is going to be exactly the same. That's what makes these interesting to read. Also makes them a little difficult to write. I can't really send out a sample essay because I don't want 20 essays all looking like the same thing. Which ideas you pick and how you discuss them is going to determine the shape of your essay there. Then in section 3, you're going to shift towards your conclusion. And that kind of depends on your topics, right? You may be able to bring them all together. You may just be kind of saying, hey, isn't it interesting that what one critic talks about and what the next critic talks about can be juxtaposed with the genres. And that may be as close as you get to equating the Johnston idea and the McCloud idea. If they're pretty close, you might bring them together and say, isn't it interesting how these two genres examine a similar idea, but in different ways. Or maybe in the same way. It kind of depends what you said in your essay. Don't repeat your thesis in the conclusion. This is not a speech. Do more than just summarize your essay. I've already read it. There's no reason to go back and repeat what you've already said. Kind of take us out to the big picture and kind of show us what's the overall point of your analysis. Make sure you have everything on the works status page. Then all the other fun requirements. You should quote at least once from each work. Should have at least one long quote and one short quote from either of the two literary works. Generally, the long quote is going to come from a dollhouse. It's hard to do a long quote from a graphic novel, especially this one, where a lot of the novels just Lulu staring at the ocean or something like that. If you want to, you can, or not if you want to, when you cite Lulu, make sure you get the panel number and the page number. You can also do an image of the panel if you want to. Sometimes that's a lot easier. It looks pretty too in your essay. All quotes from the dollhouse should come from the text at the link on the content page. That's very important. It seems like just a little side note. But if it's not coming from the source I've provided, it's a good sign as the quote might be coming from artificial intelligence. That's going to be the first alarm bell that goes off. So be careful there. Make sure you're quoting from the text you read, not from any research or from AI or anything like that. You need all the fun punctuation, and there's all the forbidden words. And it's a hard little essay because you got to have the play in your head, you got to have the graphic novel in your head, you got to have Johnson in your head, and you got to have McCloud in your head, and you're trying to juxtapose the critic and the genre, and it's a lot going on. And the best way to handle it is kind of to think of it as two mini essays within a broader essay. So you're not trying to keep it all in your head all at once. So especially when you get to the body, kind of focus on that Johnson idea and take us through how it relates to Lulu Anew, and focus on that. And then the second part of the body of the essay, then you're going to talk about McCloud's idea and relate it to a dollhouse. That's generally my best advice to students, is to handle those kind of separately in your head instead of trying to do it all at once. But that's the second essay. I assume you're going to have questions as you work on it. And again, make sure you're hitting the scaffolding with the thesis statement coming in on Thursday, the first two paragraphs next Monday, and then we'll look at the draft the following Thursday. If you have any questions about it, be sure to let me know. And we will, if I can find the button, we will talk to you later. Bye-bye.